They were just driving home from dinner, laughing, talking, minding their business. Then suddenly, flashing lights. Sirens. Guns drawn. Why? Because they looked suspicious. But the officers had no idea. She was FBI, and he was with the Department of Justice. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Moral Mirror, the place where we hold up the truth, reflect on the deeper lessons, and tell real stories that reveal the heart of human experience. On a quiet Saturday night, just outside Washington, D.C., Maya Robinson and her husband, Derek Thomas, were doing something most couples take for granted: driving home after a peaceful dinner. Maya, dressed in a sharp navy blazer, had her hands confidently on the steering wheel. Derek, in a crisp button-down shirt and tie, sat in the passenger seat, telling her about a funny moment at work. The jazz playing on the radio blended with their laughter. Maya was a respected FBI special agent. Derek worked as a senior legal advisor at the Department of Justice. Between the two of them, they had over 25 years of federal service. But tonight, they weren't federal officials. They were just a couple heading home after a rare night out. Then, without warning, flashing red and blue lights lit up the rearview mirror. A siren screamed behind them. Maya instinctively checked her speed. She hadn't been speeding. No missed lights. Nothing illegal. She pulled over calmly to the side of the road. Derek sighed. Just stay cool. She nodded. Always. A patrol car rolled to a stop behind them, engine rumbling. Two officers stepped out. Their body language was tense, hands hovering near their weapons, eyes locked onto the SUV like it was a threat. Driver, roll down your window. Hands where we can see them, one officer shouted, flashlight pointed directly into Maya's face. She squinted, raising her hands. Both of you, step out of the vehicle now, the second officer added sharply. Derek leaned slightly forward. Officer, may I ask what this is about? You match the description of suspicious individuals reported in this neighborhood, came the reply. Suspicious individuals? Maya repeated calmly. We're just driving home. What exactly do we match? The officer didn't answer. Instead, he motioned for backup on his shoulder mic. Maya slowly reached into her purse. I'm retrieving my badge. I'm a federal agent. I'm showing you my credentials. Keep your hands visible, the officer barked, hand now fully gripping his holster. I'm not reaching for anything else, she said firmly. Just listen to me. My name is Special Agent Maya Robinson, FBI. I'm going to show you my identification. Derek followed. And I'm Derek Thomas. I work for the Department of Justice. We are federal employees. You're making a mistake. But the officers didn't retreat. They didn't lower their voices. They didn't apologize. One of them responded, everyone says that. Despite Maya holding her open badge, despite Derek showing his DOJ ID, the officers continued questioning them like criminals. Where are they coming from? Why were they in this neighborhood? Did they have proof they lived nearby? Maya's jaw clenched. She had gone through extensive FBI training, de-escalation, threat assessment, proper protocol. But none of that mattered now. Because in the eyes of these officers, they didn't see law enforcement. They didn't see professionals. They only saw black skin. Officer, Maya said steadily, you've seen my badge. You know I'm a federal agent. You've seen my husband's credentials. We've told you where we're coming from. There is no lawful reason to continue this stop. We're just doing our job, the officer replied flatly. No, Derek said, his voice controlled but boiling. You're abusing your power, and you're targeting us because of how we look. From a nearby front porch, a neighbor stepped out, holding up a phone. Recording. Maya noticed and nodded almost imperceptibly. Someone else was seeing this, witnessing it, maybe even protecting them. Still, the damage had been done. What should have been a normal drive home turned into an incident that left them shaken and furious. They had both worked inside the justice system for years, and tonight they were reminded of how easily they could be misjudged by it. As the officers retreated to their squad car to run the IDs, Maya sat motionless, hands still resting on the steering wheel. Her training, her years of service, her badge, it all seemed invisible in that moment. She wasn't afraid of being arrested. She wasn't afraid of being fined. She was afraid of being misunderstood fatally, in the blink of an eye, over an assumption. I never thought it would be us, Derek said quietly. Maya didn't answer. She just stared straight ahead, heart pounding. This wasn't just a traffic stop. This was a mirror held up to the justice system itself, the very one they had both sworn to uphold. And in that reflection, they saw a truth neither could ignore. The cruiser's engine idled behind them, headlights still burning through the rear windshield. Inside the SUV, Maya and Derek sat in silence, waiting. They had both handed over federal identification, clear, undeniable proof of who they were. But the officers didn't back down. If anything, the mood felt heavier now. "You'd think showing them a federal badge would end it," Derek muttered, voice low. "But to them, it doesn't mean anything." Maya nodded. She'd been in dangerous situations before, high-stakes investigations, undercover stings, even raids. But never had she felt this particular kind of vulnerability. It wasn't about the uniform or the gun. It was about being seen as a threat before a word was even spoken. The officer returned. Still no smile. No apology. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle again, ma'am?" he asked, tone flat. Maya opened her door slowly, standing tall. "As I've already explained," she said, her badge still in hand, "I'm a special agent with the FBI. We're not suspects. We're not in violation of any law. I'd like to know exactly what this is about." The officer ignored the question. "We just want to confirm a few things. You say you're with the Bureau?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "You have my credentials. What else do you need to confirm?" The second officer, younger and clearly tense, chimed in. "We had a call about a suspicious vehicle. Black SUV. 2 people inside. That's all we know." Derek stepped out now, too, joining Maya. "That's not reasonable suspicion. That's a vague description used as a weapon. We're not new to this." The younger officer's eyes darted to Maya's ID again, hesitating. Finally, the older one spoke. "It's protocol. We need to verify through dispatch." Derek's jaw tightened. "You could have done that the minute you saw our IDs." A silence hung between them, awkward, thick. The power dynamics were shifting, not just because of the credentials, but because of the poise and confidence with which Maya and Derek carried themselves. They weren't rattled. They were resolute. Maya looked directly at the officer. "Let me ask you something. If we were a white couple in a black SUV, dressed professionally, badges in hand, would we still be standing out here?" No response. "I've worked narcotics, counterterrorism, missing persons. I've arrested people with more decency than I'm being shown right now." The officers avoided eye contact. "We're going to let you go," one finally said. "You can head on out." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a shallow dismissal. Maya didn't move. "You pulled us over. Detained us. Treated us like suspects. And now you're letting us go? That's not how this works. There's going to be a report filed, and you'll see my name on it." She stepped forward slightly. Not with aggression, but with the calm authority of someone who knew exactly how the system was supposed to work and how badly it had just failed. The officer seemed unsure. "That's your right." "Damn right it is," Derek added. They returned to the vehicle. Maya sat down, took a breath, and stared at her own reflection in the rearview mirror. "I've shown that badge more times than I can count," she whispered. "And tonight, it meant nothing." Derek placed a hand gently over hers. "It means something to me." Just then her phone buzzed. A notification from a neighbor she barely knew. "I recorded what happened. If you need it, I've got the whole thing." Maya's stomach turned. Relief, anger, gratitude all at once. The moment they drove away, the full weight of the stop hit them. They weren't angry that the officers were doing their jobs. They were angry that doing the job so easily defaulted to suspicion when it came to people who looked like them. In the eyes of those officers, their identities, titles, and humanity were invisible. But not anymore. That video would soon reach the hands of the FBI's Internal Affairs Unit. Derek would file a formal complaint with DOJ oversight. And Maya, she wouldn't let this slide. Because for every Maya and Derek who knew how to respond, how many others couldn't? How many people complied and still ended up on the evening news, or worse, in a hashtag? This stop was over, but the story was just beginning. The next morning, the video had already been seen by thousands. It was shaky, shot from a neighbor's porch, but clear enough to tell the story. 2 officers pulling over a calm, compliant couple, ignoring their federal IDs, escalating tension with no legal basis. Maya watched it once, then again. Her jaw tightened at the moment she said, "You've seen my badge," and the officer responded like it meant nothing. The uniform she wore every day, the oath she took, it had all been invisible in that moment. And she was done staying quiet. By noon, she had filed an internal report through the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility. Not just about the officer's conduct, but about how the entire structure of such stops reflected a deeper, systemic rot. Derek did the same. He drafted a formal complaint through DOJ's Civil Rights Division. Facts, dates, credentials, all included. But bureaucracy moves slowly, and they knew this wouldn't go away on paperwork alone. So when the precinct's lieutenant called that afternoon to clarify the misunderstanding, Maya asked for something more than a conversation. "I want the body cam footage," she said plainly. There was silence on the other end of the line. "We're not releasing any internal footage at this time," the voice said carefully. "You will," she replied, "because I have video, and if the department doesn't show transparency, we both know where this goes next." They weren't just federal employees now. They were the story. By that evening, local news stations had picked up the video. One headline read, "FBI agent and DOJ official stopped without cause. Racial profiling alleged." Calls began to pour in. Journalists, attorneys, civil rights groups. Maya and Derek stayed quiet for now, but the department didn't. In a rushed press release, they claimed the stop was based on a vague but credible tip about a possible vehicle related to a neighborhood robbery. The statement didn't name the officers, and it didn't mention the couple's identities. Maya read it, stone-faced. No admission, no apology, just spin. "They're buying time," Derek said, "trying to get ahead of the fallout." That night, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't media. It was internal affairs. Two plainclothes investigators, one from the FBI and one from DOJ's Inspector General's office, sat in the living room, recorders on the table. "This is off the record for now," one said, "but we need you to walk us through everything." Maya didn't hesitate. She described how the officers approached. The demand to exit the vehicle. The flashlight in her eyes. The disbelief when she presented her badge. How they questioned her authority. How they let her go, only after backup had arrived, without ever admitting they were wrong. Derek followed. "If she hadn't been FBI, if I hadn't had that badge, I don't know how this ends." The agents nodded. They weren't surprised. They'd heard this story before, just not from one of their own. 3 days later, the department's chief held a press conference. By then, the public pressure was mounting. The video had crossed 1 million views. Local city leaders were calling for an independent review. The chief stood stiffly behind the podium. "We are committed to transparency. An internal investigation is underway. At this time, the officers involved have been placed on administrative leave pending review. No apology." Maya watched from her office at the bureau. Her phone buzzed with messages. Agents, friends, even her supervisor, who said, "We've got your back. Just say the word." But she didn't want vengeance. She wanted the system to see itself. That weekend, Maya and Derek were invited to speak at a community town hall organized by civil rights advocates. They weren't sure if they should. Part of them wanted to move on. But another part, the moral mirror part, knew this wasn't just about them. The town hall was packed. People stood along the walls, some with their kids. Activists, retired officers, young students. Many had their own stories, their own scars. Maya stepped to the microphone. The room quieted. "I wear a badge," she began. "Not just to protect, but to represent something greater than myself. But what happened that night reminded me of something I think too many of us live with. No matter what title you hold, how educated you are, how well you follow the rules, your skin color can still decide how you're treated." Derek stood beside her. "We didn't come here to make this about revenge," he said. "We came here to talk about accountability, about what justice looks like when it's blind, and what it looks like when it's not." The crowd responded with a quiet intensity. Nods, eyes brimming with recognition. This wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. It was a turning point. The headlines didn't slow down. FBI agent profiled during routine stop. DOJ lawyer demands transparency after police mistake. Even the badge didn't protect them. a system under fire. Within days, the story was no longer just a local matter. It had become a national discussion. Cable news debated it. Civil rights groups posted about it. Law enforcement forums bristled with anonymous comments. Some officers defended the stop, saying they were just following protocol. Others, quietly, admitted it didn't look good. Some even thanked Maya and Derek for speaking out. But the couple wasn't chasing attention. They were chasing accountability. Behind the scenes, investigations had begun. The Internal Affairs Department started interviewing the two officers involved. Their body cam footage, previously withheld, was now being reviewed by oversight committees. And what it showed confirmed what the neighbor's video suggested, a stop based on assumption, not evidence. The footage revealed something even more disturbing. Before pulling the SUV over, one of the officers had said to his partner, "They look like they're up to something." That was it. That was the justification. Those 6 words sparked a deeper question. How many times had those instincts been wrong? How many people had been pulled over, searched, or arrested based on a feeling, not a fact? While the investigation unfolded, Maya and Derek returned to work. But it wasn't normal. Some colleagues tiptoed around them. Others offered quiet support in hallways and messages. But what struck Maya most was how many of them, Black, Latino, even white agents, shared similar stories. Stories they had never told. Stories that sounded all too familiar. One day, a junior agent pulled Maya aside. "Ma'am," she said, "I watched your speech. I've been stopped 3 times in my own neighborhood. Never filed a complaint because I didn't think it would matter." Maya looked her in the eye. It always matters, especially when it feels like it doesn't. That moment stayed with her. Meanwhile, Derek's phone rang with calls from legal advocacy groups and professors wanting to use their case in trainings and lectures. It became a case study at Georgetown Law. Students examined the legal breakdown, the civil liberties issues, the power dynamics. But to Derek, the most powerful class was the one he didn't teach. One Saturday, at a community center, he spoke to a group of high school students. Mostly Black, mostly from neighborhoods that lived with this kind of tension every day. He told them the story, every detail, and at the end he asked, "What would you have done in our shoes?" A 16-year-old boy raised his hand. "Honestly, I would have freaked out. I don't got no badge. If I move wrong, I could get shot." That answer haunted Derek more than anything else, because it was true. A week later, the police department released an official statement. It was a carefully worded document, one that avoided direct blame but acknowledged procedural failures. It stated that the officers had exercised poor judgment and that they would undergo mandatory retraining and cultural awareness education. The department promised a review of how officers interpret anonymous tips. There was no mention of suspension, no formal apology, but it was something, a crack in the wall. When asked by reporters for comment, Maya didn't mince words. "It's not about retraining," she said. "It's about retrusting. If officers don't even trust a federal badge when it's in front of them, how are we supposed to trust them with our lives?" That quote was printed everywhere. In response to mounting pressure, the mayor held a televised roundtable on public safety and racial bias. Maya and Derek were invited. They sat alongside civil rights leaders, senior police officials, and local youth. For over 2 hours, they shared ideas, frustrations, and facts. The police chief listened, but mostly didn't speak. When he finally did, it was brief. "This incident is forcing us to look in the mirror. Not everyone will like what they see, but if we don't confront it, we can't change it." Maya caught the phrase, "look in the mirror." That night, she told Derek, "Maybe it's time we keep holding it up, publicly." And so, a new project was born. They called it the Moral Mirror Initiative, a platform for real stories, real people, and real accountability. Not just focused on law enforcement, but on every system that impacts marginalized communities. They began interviewing others who had similar experiences, teachers, doctors, veterans, even off-duty officers who had been mistaken for threats. Each video ended with the same powerful message. You see what happened. Now ask yourself, what would you have done differently? It wasn't just a platform. It was a challenge. To reflect, to grow, to act. And that's what made it powerful. The weeks that followed weren't easy, but they were necessary. Maya and Derek had unintentionally become symbols, not because they wanted to be, but because the truth had demanded it. And the truth was this: even with badges, even with titles, even with poise and training, they weren't immune to the deep undercurrent of racial bias that still flows through systems meant to protect. They weren't exceptions. They were the mirror, and the more they told their story, the more others found the courage to tell theirs. Letters poured in from across the country. Emails, handwritten notes, direct messages. Some came from other federal employees who had stayed silent out of fear of losing their careers. Others came from parents who now worried more than ever about their children. One letter from an older black veteran read, "I wore a uniform for 22 years and still got pulled over like I didn't belong in my own town. Thank you for speaking what many of us can't." Another came from a white police officer in Ohio. "Your story made me rethink the way I approach stops. I've never profiled anyone intentionally, but I see now that impact matters more than intention. Thank you." The Moral Mirror initiative took off faster than expected. Each episode featured not just stories, but reflections. Teachers who had been assumed to be janitors. Doctors mistaken for nurses because of their race. College students followed in stores. Retired judges questioned about why they were in certain neighborhoods. Every episode ended the same way. We're not telling you what to think. We're showing you what's real. Now ask yourself, what would you have done differently? One day, months later, Maya was invited to speak at Quantico, the FBI's academy. This time, not as a field agent, as a change agent. She stood before a classroom of new recruits, mostly young, mostly eager, mostly idealistic. "Your badge," she told them, "will give you authority, but it doesn't give you wisdom. That's earned through how you see people, through how you listen, through how you unlearn what you thought you knew." There are no slides, no charts, just her and her story. She didn't tell it to shame them. She told it to prepare them, because she wanted better for the next generation of officers. She wanted them to serve with courage and with conscience. Derek, meanwhile, continued his work in federal law, but with a new lens. He joined committees focused on legal reform, community policing, and civil liberties. His calm, legal mind became a trusted voice on panels across the country. But the most powerful platform remained the one they built together, Moral Mirror. It wasn't about blame. It wasn't about outrage. It was about truth, unfiltered, uncomfortable, necessary. Eventually, the two officers from that night were officially reprimanded. One resigned quietly. The other was transferred and placed under supervision. The city promised updated protocols on stops involving government IDs. Cultural competency training was expanded. Not everything changed overnight, but something had begun. That small spark, fueled by a routine stop gone wrong, had started real conversations in real rooms. Maya and Derek never wanted to be known for that night, but now they were grateful for it, because it gave them purpose beyond the titles. It gave them a chance to say what so many people feel but can't always articulate. We don't want special treatment. We want equal treatment. We don't want to be feared. We want to be respected. We don't want silence. We want truth. They had found their voice, and they weren't letting go. So if this story made you pause, if it made you uncomfortable, if it made you think differently about what justice, fairness, and dignity really look like, then don't just watch. Reflect. Because we don't just tell stories here. We hold up the truth and ask you to look deeper. Sparkles, this is Moral Mirror, where reality meets reflection. I'm Speech Bubble, where assumptions get challenged. Folded Hands medium dark skin tone, and where change begins with you. Direct hit if you believe stories like this deserve to be seen, shared, and remembered. Subscribe to Moral Mirror now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a real moment of truth. And share this story with someone who needs to see the world from a different perspective. Because sometimes the most powerful change starts with a mirror.